I'm Anna, 45 years old. 15 years ago, I married Robert, who's 2 years younger than me. We met at one of those group blind dates, and it seemed like things took off when one of my friends casually mentioned,
Anna just bought a house.
maybe that tidbit sparked something, because despite being older, I found myself the focus of his persistent and passionate attention. At first, I was a bit skeptical, but on our first one-on-one date, Robert's friendly smile and warm, thoughtful manner completely won me over. Having never really been in a serious relationship until then, I quickly became captivated by him. Wanting him to like me, I tried hard to embody the ideal woman. Fortunately, I didn't mind doing chores, and living alone for a while helped me pull off that homemaker vibe pretty well. After a year of dating, Robert proposed me, and I happily said yes, and we got married. Then, at his request, I switched from a full-time position to a part-time one. Little did I know that the effort I put into winning his heart would end up tightening around my own neck in such a way. Back then, I never saw that coming. That happened the first time I was late coming home because of work. The weather had suddenly turned, and I found myself running home. I shouldn't have left the laundry hanging outside. Feeling a bit of regret, I opened the front door to find Robert's bag. It seemed like he came home early, which was rare for him. Great. It had just started raining, so the laundry might be okay. I felt relieved as I walked inside.
Hi.
Hi, Anna.
What's with that sulky tone? There he was, sitting on the sofa with a sour expression, watching TV, and next to him was a messy pile of half-dry laundry he had brought in.
About the laundry.
Oh, thanks for.
You left it outside knowing it could rain? Aren't you embarrassed that your husband had to do it?
What did he say? I felt my gratitude caught in my throat. As I stood there stunned, he let out an exaggerated sigh.
Why do you think I asked you to go part-time? So you could be a proper wife who can handle the household chores, right? I expect you to manage these things as my wife.
How outdated can he get? Anyway, that was sudden rain. Even so, I was head over heels for him back then. Besides, it was me who had made the effort to act like some ideal housewife. I swallowed my complaint and just said I understood. Feeling a bit uneasy, I looked at a good luck charm one of my friends had given me for a rainy day. Gradually, I started to feel more at ease. At the time, I couldn't bring myself to be upset with Robert over that. A year later, we welcomed a beautiful little girl named Lucy. It was a blessing that my family lived nearby and could help support us. Robert doted on our daughter, but that was all. He still barely helped with the house or the childcare, but back then, Lucy was very attached to him as he loved to spoil her. At least, he played with her. Luckily, we could live off his salary alone. When Lucy turned 3, I enrolled her in daycare, working part-time again. I started using my own salary to find ways to make life a bit easier for myself. Robert didn't pitch in with the housework or child-rearing, but he often criticized how I handled things. When he'd complain about the house being messy or dinner being late, I'd just remind myself that he was a big kid who made money, and that helped keep me calm. Thus, while I had my frustrations, we managed to live a pretty typical life as a family of 3, getting along reasonably well. One Saturday after Lucy had started going to middle school. After she had left for her school club activities, Robert got a call on his phone. From the voice leaking through, I guessed that was his mom. He sounded serious, scratching his head and responding in brief murmurs. When the call ended, I asked him,
Did something happen?
Yeah, well, can we have Mom and Dad live with us for a while?
What did you say?
According to him, the apartment where his parents lived was being torn down, and they wanted to stay with us until they found a new place.
They're getting older, and I don't want them just settling in some random place with all the risks that come with it, like cold snaps or tripping on stairs. So, what do you think?
I understood his reasoning. I understood his parents' thinking too. Despite that, dealing with those in-laws. Feeling uneasy but not showing that, I nodded. What else could I do? There was no way I could say, right in front of Robert, that I didn't want his parents at our place. A month later, my in-laws arrived with a moving truck in tow. They brought in a mountain of their stuff, wandered around the house like they owned that, and sighed loudly before muttering.
It's small, isn't it?
That was all because of their mountains of stuff. Swallowing the words, I put on a polite smile. I opened the door connecting to the living room.
For now, we've cleared out the downstairs bedroom for you too. You can use this as your room until you find a new place.
It looks like a drafty room.
Well, we have AC here, so please feel free to use it if needed.
While my mother-in-law unpacked her things with a disgruntled look, my father-in-law had already opened the fridge without asking.
Excuse me?
Huh. This is our house for a while, isn't it? What's wrong with opening our own fridge?
Well, that's true, but…
They'd hardly visited us before though. I thought he might at least say something first.
I drink 3 cans of beer a day. I'll let it slide today, but make sure they're cold from now on, all right?
Got it.
That was exactly why I wasn't thrilled about living with them. My in-laws are old-fashioned, believing that elders deserve respect just because they're older. Men are above women and should always be prioritized. When Lucy was born, their first words were, "The next one better be a boy." The worst part, my in-laws adore Robert, who turns into a kid around them, playing right along. Luckily, they lived far enough away that dealing with them just for a day during Christmas or Thanksgiving was usually enough, but that would continue for the time being. That was depressing, but what other choice did I have? I figured that wouldn't be too long to find their new apartment, a few months at most. Yet, all those hopes were soon crushed.
Anna, I want to ask, is this really all you made for dinner?
One evening, a while after we'd started living together, my mother-in-law asked that with a furrowed brow.
Yes, is something wrong?
Just bread, soup, pickles, and grilled chicken? Haven't you heard of a balanced dinner? What kind of dinner is this? Like cheap lunch special?
Maybe that wasn't fancy, but I'd loaded the soup with vegetables, and the pickles were homemade. I believed that was nutritionally fine.
Grandma, Mom just got back from work and cooked this for us. I think it's good enough.
Lucy interjected kindly, but my mother-in-law snapped.
A child who doesn't know better shouldn't interrupt adult conversations. I'm saying this for your dad's and your own good, all right?
Right? You're part-time and get weekends off, so can't you make something more ahead of time?
Robert chimed in, and my mother-in-law nodded approvingly. I'd have more time if I weren't busy running errands for them, like buying extra beer and adding blankets to keep them warm.
Now, hurry up and go study. If you want to speak up, at least aim for a college worth bragging about.
Hearing her harsh words, Lucy put down her fork uncomfortably and went upstairs to her room. I sighed as my mother-in-law criticized her for being rude. Did she expect a calm reaction from Lucy? Before criticizing her, she should accuse someone else.
Yeah, there. Run, go.
My father-in-law was right in front of the TV, nursing his beer with pickles and chicken, cheering loudly at the baseball game. With one leg propped on the sofa and shouting between swigs, he had little regard for anything else. Since my in-laws arrived, that was him on the top of the hierarchy in the house. The next was my husband, my mother-in-law, then me, and finally Lucy. Indeed, there may be a place for respecting a certain pecking order in a household. However, how would she feel, being pushed aside by her grandparents who acted like they owned the place? While my in-laws spent every day doing whatever they pleased, they hadn't looked for a new place, helped around the house, or contributed a single dollar. Once, I asked them if they could chip in a bit financially, and my mother-in-law screamed.
We never charged our son anything while raising him. Are you asking your in-laws for money?
I had no words. Moreover, they wouldn't hear another word about that, but they'd just use the money they saved to splurge on shopping trips and spa weekends. Lucy and I were reaching our breaking point. Over the weekend, I decided to take her to stay at my parents' house for a break, and after my in-laws went to bed, I talked to Robert.
Listen, ever since your parents moved in, Lucy's been spending more and more time in her room. As for food and utilities, it's costing a lot of money. This is supposed to be the house for 3 of us. I mean you, Lucy, and me. Can't you tell your parents to ease up a little?
Huh? Yeah, well, Dad and Mom will be moving soon, I think. Let's just hang in there for now.
He mumbled, still staring at his phone. At the time, he'd been hooked on a mobile game, playing whenever he got the chance. He'd also been saying work was busy, coming home late, and working more on weekends. Last weekend, he even left for a sudden business trip.
Hey, are you listening?
Yeah, of course I am.
What was so fascinating about that game anyway? Just as I leaned in to take a peek, he suddenly jumped up, hiding his screen.
What are you doing? That's private.
Sure, it's private. Even so, why did he hide that over a game?
What are you hiding?
Well, nothing.
Nothing? Then show me. I'd like to see what kind of game you're into.
Well,
Robert stammered, fumbling with his phone behind his back. Maybe that was why a message notification chimed from his phone, which had been silent until then. At some point, he must have switched out of silent mode. That was Friday night, 11 p.m. People wouldn't usually message at that hour unless they were young and out for the night. Suspicious enough.
You've got a message. Why don't you check it?
I said, smiling calmly. He glanced at the screen and gave me a nervous smile.
it's work stuff. I'm heading to bed now since I have work tomorrow. Oh.
As he headed toward the bedroom, his phone slipped out of his hand. I quickly picked that up and glanced at the screen. A message from Mary saying, "Looking forward to tomorrow. I love you too." I held his phone up close to his face.
So, what kind of work lets you have fun with another woman? Who's Mary? And I love you too? Did you send her that first?
My suspicions were confirmed. After darting his eyes around nervously, Robert started apologizing.
I'm sorry. It was just a bit of fun.
Long story short, my husband was cheating. The whole thing about being into mobile games was a lie. The woman from work he was involved with was a younger coworker, and of course, all those weekend shifts and business trips were lies too. My head spun at the betrayal. Meanwhile, I'd been supporting him with everything, working part-time, doing chores, and raising our child. Despite that, Robert just laughed that off with that ridiculous grin, thinking that would smooth things over. I felt something snap inside me.
You think it's fine because you weren't serious?
Hey, keep it down.
My in-laws had woken up, rubbing their eyes as they came out to see.
What's going on?
Oh, that was perfect. I would let them know what their perfect son had been up to.
Please listen to this.
I laid out everything I'd just discovered to my in-laws. Robert sat there, shrinking like a scolded kid. I didn't care if that seemed childish to tell on them. The 3 all needed a dose of shame, frankly. As I finished, I let out a deep breath. My father-in-law just muttered with a shrug.
Is that all?
Huh?
He said it was just fun, right? Men need a little excitement here and there. If you get mad over every little affair, you'll never make it.
I couldn't stand that anymore. Oh, surely my mother-in-law would understand, being a woman herself. I turned to her, hoping for a bit of support, but I was stunned. She was there, patting Robert's back and comforting him.
Robert, it's terrible that Anna snooped on your phone and yelled at you. When you first introduced her, she was so sweet and down to earth, but now she's just turned into this aged wife. No wonder you wanted to go out and have some fun.
Thanks, Mom. I just needed a little joy in my life.
Robert chimed in, nodding with a smile. She sighed in exasperation as she spoke.
Anna, don't get hysterical over something this minor. If Robert is cheating, it's because you've lost your charm.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. If they were going to act like that never happened, or worse, defend him, then I wanted nothing more to do with them. I'd held back, thinking I'd wait at least until our daughter was an adult, but I was at my limit.
Let's get divorced.
I took out the good luck charm I'd saved from years ago, and a filled-out divorce form. Robert looked at his parents like a lost puppy, pleading with them for help. My mother-in-law just huffed.
We're fine if you guys separate. You're smart, handsome, and we'll have no trouble finding someone else. That girl you're seeing now is young, right? Maybe she'll even give you a son. Daughters can be such a disappointment, all talk and no gratitude.
I watched, waiting to see how Robert would respond to such a comment about Lucy, but he just grinned, as if something had just clicked for him.
You're right. Lucy used to be adorable, but now she just treats me like I'm invisible. Maybe starting over with a new family is the way to go.
Excuse me? Robert was the one who stopped caring for Lucy in the first place. As she got older and started expressing herself more maturely, he began to ignore her. It was ridiculous to think that a father who wouldn't listen properly, only interacting on a whim, would be well liked. Whatever little affection I still felt for him was draining fast.
Now, please remember that I'll demand property division and alimony.
The moment I said that, he froze, with a pen in his hand. My mother-in-law grabbed his hand.
Property division? Alimony? You're the reason for his infidelity. So why should Robert pay you anything?
In our days, we didn't have to deal with this. Robert, if you are to pay that much, then you shouldn't even agree to a divorce.
As flawed as their logic was, that was 3 against 1. Robert looked smug, realizing his position.
That's right. I don't have to sign this form, so if you want a divorce, you better be ready to negotiate with us.
Something snapped inside me. All right. I was done, completely done. I couldn't deal with anything to do with those people anymore. In other words, I'd officially reached my breaking point.
Fine. Instead of property division and alimony, I'll just take what's rightfully mine. If you'd like, you can even record me saying this as a statement.
All 3 of them visibly relaxed. My mother-in-law encouraged us to record that quickly before I would change my mind. I recorded a message on our phones where I restated my terms, and Robert happily accepted them.
This is the start of my new life.
He signed the divorce form with a spring in his step. Late that night, after the 3 of them had gone to bed, I messaged Lucy about our plan going forward. Her okay response made me feel a huge sense of relief. You guys never regret that later. Just be prepared. Then, I rushed to find a new place to live in. The divorce form was successfully submitted, and I secured full custody of my daughter. On the day we'd finally leave that house, I packed up in silence. Robert and his parents acted more entitled than ever, drinking together even before noon.
I can't wait to get out of here.
Lucy had already packed all her belongings, completely done with her grandparents. I had so little to take with me, which was a matter of fact. Ever since I got married, I'd barely bought anything for my clothes or hobbies. Soon, that was nearly time for the moving truck to arrive.
Well, good thing you don't have much. That'll make the moving costs cheaper, huh?
My mother-in-law started poking at the boxes we'd packed, smirking. Lucy and I exchanged glances and burst out laughing.
What are you talking about? We booked the biggest truck available.
Oh?
Ignoring her, who was frozen in shock, I walked over to the fridge and firmly pulled out the plug.
Wait, what are you doing?
This? I bought it, you know.
I took out all the drinks and food inside and piled them on the floor, of course freezer items included. The floor got a little wet, but I didn't care. My mother-in-law grabbed my arm.
Let me go, I'm busy right now.
I shook her off, unplugging and gathering up each appliance I could carry, like an oven, an electric kettle, a toaster, and a multifunction cooker. That was all, but a washing machine, a robot vacuum, and a dishwasher as well. I turned to Robert, who was watching and dumbfounded, and gave him a bright smile.
Didn't you realize? I used most of my paycheck to buy these appliances to help make housework easier.
Right. I had bought most of the appliances in the house. That wasn't all.
Mom, I could get it down.
Lucy came downstairs, carrying a ceiling light.
Thanks. Can you help with the ones on the first floor next?
She grabbed a step stool and started unscrewing the living room light. Robert and my father-in-law were too confused to even respond. That was because they were drunk in the middle of the day. I guess I had no choice. I would explain everything.
Just so you know, the AC units, lights, and big furniture around the house were all mine, too. Remember?
That finally seemed to hit Robert.
Wait, please stop. I beg you.
I had no reason to stop, though. I entered the spare room and opened the wardrobe there. Somehow, that was stuffed full of my in-laws' clothes.
I'm just taking what I bought.
I grabbed their clothes, tossing them onto the floor. There were some high-end pieces, but they meant nothing to me. With the wardrobe emptied, I moved on to the bookcases and display shelves, clearing them out one by one. Next, my dresser. When I opened the drawer, I found that crammed with my mother-in-law's cosmetics, some of which were pricey. Too bad. One by one would take too long. Then, an idea occurred to me.
Here we go.
I flipped the drawer upside down. In seconds, that was empty. I felt a great sense of satisfaction. My mother-in-law scrambled to gather her cosmetics, her face pale.
Mom, the movers are here.
Lucy called out, beaming.
Go ahead and show them in. Let's get everything loaded.
Her voice was bright and cheerful, handling the movers confidently. Far more mature than the adults here, who were just standing around in shock.
It's a bit messy in here, but don't mind it. Just go ahead and move everything out.
They were true professionals, emptying the house at lightning speed.
Oh.
All that was left were a few stray pieces of furniture and a mountain of food and drinks scattered around, completely out of place. Anyway, most of the essentials for living were gone.
Well then, see you later.
As the truck pulled away, Lucy and I shared a deep breath, feeling accomplished. I took an envelope from her and told her to go on to my parents' place. Then, a loud voice erupted from behind us. Lucy flinched, but I urged her on and turned around. That wasn't just because of the alcohol. Robert and his parents, frowning and trembling, were glaring at me.
How dare you could do something so terrible?
I just kept my end of the deal as it is. Now, if I were you, I'd hurry and make arrangements for your own move.
The three stared at me, looking clueless. I was completely astonished.
Are you telling me you forgot? I'm the owner of this house and land.
Robert's face turned pale.
You mean dot this house too?
Ding ding. Exactly. And it's already been sold.
Instead of celebrating his correct answer, He and his parents were frozen, almost fainting. Funny how that worked. Well, that could be expected.
That can't be allowed.
Look, I bought this house, I'm the one listed on the title, and I've been paying the mortgage myself all this time. Meanwhile, you haven't contributed a cent, so why would you poke your nose into its sale?
The truth was, whether they lived there or not, I could have sold that on my own any time. No rules were broken. More than that, the house was nearly empty. Given their spending habits, I doubted they'd manage to replace all the essentials anytime soon.
Oh, don't worry. You've got that sweet girlfriend, right? Why not go stay with her?
My father-in-law said, trying to sound upbeat, and I snorted.
You can try, but don't expect much. It seems like Mary has a considerable debt.
Really?
Deer caught in headlights. Was that what they mean?
No way.
My words made his face even paler.
No way, that's...
Robert quickly fumbled for his phone to call Mary. Nevertheless, all he got was an automated response. According to that, the number he was trying to reach was unavailable or powered off. I approached him and his parents, who looked totally lost, and handed over the envelope from Lucy.
Here, this is from Lucy.
Oh, could it be?
It's a letter from her. Of course, she wanted to support her dad, her grandpa, and grandma in their time of need.
Robert's face lit up. Not that I'd actually said that was a letter. They tore open the envelope, unfolding the papers inside, and Robert and his parents were left stunned.
Wait, is this?
Yes. It's a document regarding child support.
Prepared with the help of my lawyer, that was completely legally binding.
Anna, you said I wouldn't have to pay any property division or alimony. Oh.
Realized it, did you? I never agreed on anything about child support. You know, child support is for the benefit of the child.
His mouth opened and closed, speechless.
You're her father, remember? She told me she's determined to get into a college that's worth being proud of. So you'll be covering her expenses until she graduates.
Robert and his parents slumped, defeated. As a final courtesy, I left a brochure from the moving company in front of them and walked out. That was the least bit of kindness I could offer. A month later, just as the proceeds from the house sale had successfully hit my account, I started receiving second-chance love messages from Robert, begging for reconciliation. Their relationship became public at the office, and Mary lost her position and ended up leaving her job. Robert was stripped of his rank and demoted to a branch office out in the sticks. There, the three of them were living together in a shabby company apartment as a family. None of them, not my husband, his father, nor his mother, knew how to do household chores, and their daily lives had become a constant battle filled with arguments over unmet expectations. Their place was reportedly cluttered with junk and trash, barely livable.
Poetic justice.
He was too sticky to have me blocking his messages and putting a stop to all contact, including calls and emails. As for me, I returned to work full-time, and Lucy and I are living happily and comfortably. Our place may be smaller, but the furniture and appliances are all new. With her help, the burden of household chores is practically non-existent. She's thriving, juggling her studies and club activities. Even though I told her not to mind what my mother-in-law said, Lucy has resolved to work hard for her own future. Since Robert is living with his parents, I'm considering moving back in with my own when the lease contract is terminated. My parents have always adored Lucy, and she loves them just as much. I doubt they'd have any issues with the arrangement. With the house sale proceeds, I could even afford to remodel the house a bit, creating a more comfortable environment for my parents and Lucy. I opened my dresser and took out the new makeup I'd recently bought with my daughter. I pulled on a calm shade of lipstick.
With life ahead, this is just the beginning of my life.
Looking at myself in the mirror, I look happy. Of course, I'll stay that way for the rest of my life.